introduction. Good morning, I'm Faizun, Kamal. My friends call me the Energizer Bunny. They picked up on that this morning. I have a 5-year-old, so not really sure where the energy comes in. I pretty much feel exhausted all the time myself. But when you love what you do, it does really feel like work. And I'm a living testament to that. The gentleman whose name I didn't catch in the back, when you were talking, you reminded me of this saying I heard somewhere. There's magic in times of transition. You don't quite know where you are going to go. You're not really liking where you are. But the distance between the two is a world full of possibility. So that's, if you would, think of your mind, put your mindset there. There's a lot out there. All right. So, how to start your franchise with other people's money? To answer Greg's question this morning, my 3 words would be intuitive, inspired, and independent. So for as long as I can remember, particularly in my days as an employee in a JOB, I have always felt that. And it wasn't until I left the company that I was with that I started to really feel that I had fallen apart. A little bit about myself and kind of, Greg alluded to it a little bit, how I came to do what I now do. Some of you mentioned being laid off from your jobs. April of 2015, I was right there with you guys. At the time, I had spent almost a decade working for a small company some of you may have heard of, called Verizon. I was their vice president for public policy. And I was good at what I did, but I never loved what I did. And I get that for some people, it's okay as long as you're making a paycheck. For me, that's never been enough. I've always been looking for that something, but wasn't quite sure what that something was. 2015 left the company and ended up taking what turned out to be a year-long sabbatical. And I said to myself at that point, very quickly I realized that I was never going to go back to corporate. That it came to me like that. It didn't take a whole lot of time for me to realize that, right? And I said, well, that's wonderful now that I know where I'm not going to go, but I don't know where I do want to go. And it came to me in an odd kind of way. And I said, for all of my life, I'm type A. I don't know if you guys can pick up on that. I've always been focused on the next thing. I said, for the first time in my life, I'm not going to do that. For most of us in our careers, what do? We're in a job, we're doing well, and then my bud Greg calls me and says, Faizun, we have an opening for such and you would be fantastic. Hey, listen, I'm going to put a good word in for you. Do you want to apply? And I apply, and then I start in this new position, right? It almost becomes a little bit not intentional, right? We move on from the one thing to the next to the next. And I said to myself, at this point in my life, I don't want to do that anymore. Ended up taking about 11, 12 months. And in the process, have you guys heard of the poet called Rumi? Yeah? He said, and I'm going to completely butcher this, he said something like, whatever it is that you're looking for is also looking for you. And you have to believe that. You have to believe that, and I did. And in that 11, 12-month journey, I found the world of franchise consulting. I was very clear, before I found the world of franchises, 3 things that I wanted. I was very clear about that. 1, my child at the time was about 16 months. My biggest regret in my life will be that I have missed the first year of my child's life. It'll never come back. I was always on my phone while I'm holding her with the bottle in this hand, right? And I'm on the phone. I was never there for her. I was always at work. I missed that first year. I was not going to do that again. We have just the one child. I want to be able to be there for her. That was the first thing. The second thing, I wanted to be able to at least bring in the income that I was making at Verizon, if not exceed it. And it goes without saying, income is important for every one of us, right? But that was my second thing. My third thing, pardon my French, I did not want to work with assholes anymore. It's pretty simple. I didn't.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. The alarm goes off Monday morning, you're like, oh shit. At 10 o'clock, I have a meeting with such and such. It takes something out of us, right? And when you do it over years, it really takes something out of us. Didn't want to do that. Fast forward, I now run a franchise consulting practice, and I work with you, my clients, who find themselves in some sort of life or career transition. And they're asking the same questions that I asked. Is this all that there is? I got laid off once, and once is one time too many. Never again. What do I need to do? I'm good at what I did, but I'm not great at what I did because I never really loved it. What else is out there? I want to be able to make the kind of money that I've always thought about. Maybe your current job gives you that or doesn't give you that. How do I get from here to there? Right? If you're thinking these questions, there's an answer out there. Okay? So that's
And it's looking for you.
What's that?
And it's looking for you.
And it's looking for you.
It's paying attention.
You pay attention, my darling. Awesome. You get a virtual candy. Right.
Thank you. And I'm fortunate that Faizun and I connected 3 or 4 years ago at this point. So while there's no formal affiliation between the franchise consulting company and City National Bank, we have remained friends and trusted business partners through different companies because there's clear overlap to what Faizun does.
You call us Albert and Costello this morning. I'm not sure that I like that so much.
Doesn't matter what our brand is. It's just that we've become experts in a very narrow field, and when Faizun is taking kind of the holistic approach to helping clients, folks who have either been laid off or just want to proactively pursue something else and become kind of their own boss, and opportunities similar to that. I've been fortunate that my role the past couple of years since we've known each other has been very complementary to, again, just one small but not insignificant aspect of it, which is figuring out how to best finance an opportunity like that, especially if you've never been a business owner or viewed yourself as an entrepreneur before. It would freak the hell out of me if I were trying to do it. So I think one reason I'm good at and why I enjoy being in the personal and business banking space, which is what I do at City National Bank, what I've done for the past 7 years, is I am very, I guess you could consider myself an extrovert, which, as I understand it, the definition of that is you are energized by others, and from not just internally, but from other people you interact with. The most common way that I start doing business with entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs is we get coffee. I usually pay because I have a credit card that the bank pays for me, and we grab coffee or get lunch, and then I love
pay for my tea myself this morning. That says this to me. Okay, all right.
That I'm so energized when I hear folks that have worked for the Verizons or for the government or agencies like that, and they're taking upon themselves to do something different, and they want to make that plunge. They are self-aware enough and humble enough to admit that they don't have all the answers themselves, because I don't think a lot of people have the courage to admit that. A lot of people are just kind of feel they put the pressure on themselves and they want to figure it all out themselves, between themselves and Google. And I'm definitely the type, I cherish experts in fields that I'm not good at, which is most fields outside of banking. I haven't done any other jobs. So I value the opportunity to be in front of people like that, provide hopefully some insight into what the financing world looks like. But I'm so motivated and inspired by folks who, proactively or not, want to make a new way for themselves, a new career that they feel they have more control over. So that's my role. So the quick, 20-second infomercial about the bank I work for, because I think it speaks to how I position the services that the bank provides. I moved about a year and change ago to City National Bank, which, if you've never heard of it, that's okay, because I hadn't before a year and a half ago when I reconnected with an old colleague from my previous bank who started the practice here. So it's a brand new bank in Washington, D.C. that 65 years ago was founded by entrepreneurs in Los Angeles. And we moved to the D.C. area in large part because RBC, Royal Bank of Canada, which is a $1 trillion bank, one of the largest financial institutions in the world, They did not have a personal business banking presence in the United States, but they had a large wealth management practice. They wanted to do the old school traditional brick and mortar banking in the US. So while we have that very large scale infrastructure and financier for the office that we opened down the street at 20th and M and all the resources that go into carrying this practice out, to Greg's point, my team, it's one team, there's 15 of us in the office down the street, and it's a very community bank feel because we do the old school. You don't have to wear a tie to come in to apply for a mortgage or a loan, but it has that old school feel that a lot of online bank-based banks no longer value, but I really like it because of what I mentioned before. I like looking people in the eyes, shaking hands, because the character and the story to what a client is looking for still plays a role in what we do. So that's why I enjoy it, and that's why I wanted to tag team this presentation, because the money, as Faizun will get into in graphic detail, how you pay for a venture like this is, it's an important part of the puzzle.
So I'm going to embarrass Brian a little bit, which he signed up for the moment he signed up to do this with me, right? How many of you have ever been in a meeting or been on a call where you hear the other person saying, tell me about you, but they really don't give a damn because they're trying to sell you something? Some things to you. If you guys don't have any interest at all in franchises, it's okay. If you have any pain points in your banking, please talk to him. He genuinely cares. He listens. This is why I started working with this guy. He's not the first banker that approached me, by any means. But he's like me because I don't sell either. What I provide is an educational resource. And it's up to you. You're the decision maker. You decide what it is you're ultimately going to do. We just provide the education for you. Right? Sorry. Enough of that. Thank you. You're welcome. The franchise consulting company. Our name is pretty simple, isn't it? Tells you exactly what we do. We do just one thing. We're matchmakers. Valentine's Day is coming up. Unfortunately, I do nothing romantic at all. I match you up with a business that you are going to be best suited for, based on an analysis of your personal, professional, financial goals. That's what I do. Right? I partner with about several hundred franchise brands in the United States, many of which are also international. Like I said, we offer educational resources. We don't sell. I'm not a broker. I don't sell. I'm a consultant. A lot of people ask me, well, how much is it going to cost me to work with you? And the answer is, it costs you nothing. Because once I place you, my client, in a franchise, the franchise, who's the seller, pays me. Just like you have with a realtor or an executive headhunter. So I tell my clients, use me, but don't abuse me, please. My time is the only thing that I have. All right. So here's what I thought we would go over today. It's a lot of stuff, and I will move fairly quickly through the slides. I would ask, it's not such a large group. If you have questions, stop me right then and there and ask. If it's on your mind, other people are also probably thinking of the same question as well. Okay? Does this look like an okay agenda to you guys? Anything else that you have in your mind, burning questions that's not covered there? Right? We'll go through how franchising works. Why has it become such a growing alternative to the usual jobs that people get, right? How do you know if a franchise is the right option for you? It might not. It isn't for a lot of people, right? I call it the perfect fit. Fit, it's a tiny word. Yet, I believe it is the #1 reason why so many people lose the shirts on their back. There's not a fit with who they are, with what the business requires of them. The example I use, my success, the way I grow my business is to be able to do this. Walk into a room full of virtual strangers. You guys are very kind. Sometimes they're not that so kind. They don't laugh as readily. But my job is to come in here and to have a conversation with you. not to have a one-sided conversation with myself where I'm talking at you for an hour, right? Now, if I was the kind of person where the thought of doing this made me want to throw up all over myself, how successful do you think I would be? Fit. Right? I love what I do. I believe this work is my calling. This is why my work does not feel like work to me, because finally, I am in my authentic self, using the skills that I have, right? What is that business going to do for you? Because you all have superpowers. I call them superpowers. You all have them. What are those? Let's take those and match those superpowers up with those businesses that require those skills. Yeah? How do you work with me and Brian? We'll walk you through that, right? And then Brian's going to get into how do you fund the franchise and what next steps look like. Good? Okay. Who's had this happen to them? Anyone? Yes.
All the time.
Right? The interviewer says, we are looking for someone aged 22 to 26. Oh, but you must have 30 years of experience. Right?
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Right?
Ageism is alive and well.
You looked at my talking points, did you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't.
It's my personal experience.
It is my personal experience.
Yeah.
And the savings, right?
Yeah.
When I how many of you guys have heard of the career transition agency Lee Hecht Harrison? LHH. Okay. So part of my severance package with Verizon included 6 months at LHH because I was an executive there. This is what killed me. Every Thursday morning, I will never forget this, they're downtown DC, not too far from here, John.
Right.
I would go into their offices every Thursday morning, we'd sit around this big conference table. There were probably, I don't know, 10, 11 other people. I was probably the second youngest person around the table, right? So the average age was late 40s to about late 50s, yeah? This was the conversation every single week. Yeah, you know, so I'm going in for an interview. Here's my resume. Can you guys help? Because I need to be able to present a resume that only shows the last 15 years of my experience. How many of you have had that? You don't write the year that you graduated from undergrad and grad, right? Sneaky little ways. So here's my question. What part of your life are you trying to deny? And why should you? How many years have we spent? How much money have we spent getting the credentials, getting the degrees behind our names, right? Doing all of this stuff. Why? So once you finally have it, they say to you, that.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Because you know what? I can hire someone half your age, pay them half as much, I'd be good. I don't need to pay you all that money because you have all these credentials and all this experience behind you, right? Ageism is very much well and alive. There are some HR people in the room. You all know that that's true too. So don't even try to. You know that's true. Okay. 40 plus. This is a great place to have this conversation. People past the age of 45 look for a new job, often wait twice as long as younger age groups. You, sir, you've been job searching for 6, 7 months?
Yeah, round about, yeah.
Right? It used to kill me. It was unfair at its core. I think it's dehumanizing. I think it's extremely disrespectful. But that is the world that we live in now. For every job that you're applying, there's multiple people, right? So the ratios are getting larger. Do you guys know what a peak income is? A peak income, so studies have shown peak incomes for men and women. Peak income is when, if you think of your career as this line, the age, your age, at which you will make the highest amount of money you ever will make. From that point forward, it's going to keep going down. Peak incomes have declined. For men, it's dropped to 48. It used to be that peak incomes for men were at age 52. Okay? For women, it's now 39. For women, it used to be 42, 43. Right? I can attest to that. I had my daughter when I was 39. When I came back to Verizon, nobody said anything. But you know the plum projects? The really sexy projects? Yeah, well, Faizun has a kid she needs to go back to at home. She won't be as willing to stay at the office, you know, until 7, 7:30. It's okay, I get it. This is the world we live in. But I called bullshit on it, and I said, no, that is not the world that I want to be a part of. Okay? So, outsourcing. Corporations use very nice euphemisms for them, right? Essentially, how do we get rid of you and get somebody from where I come from, pay them $4 an hour, and call it a day? All of these things have contributed to what I call the insecurity of job security. Do you guys really believe in the core of your hearts that we have job security these days? No. Absolutely not. Contrast that, right? So, I know my parents, God bless their hearts, they talked about job security, right? My mother, who loves me like no one else does, she lost her mind. She said, what? You achieved the American dream. You come from one of the poorest countries on the planet. You came here, you got your education, you pulled yourself up by your bootstraps. You were a vice president at a Fortune 50. What the hell are you going to do now? Open your own business? What the hell is that? Perceived security, right? That she thought I was walking away from. Contrast that with what we typically say of business ownership. Oh my gosh, isn't that risky? Are you really going to do that? Why would you do that? Go get another job. But if you really go into it, is business ownership really that risky? Or is that, very much like job security, a false perception? Because here's the reality. Can you ever be let go from your business? Can your boss ever downsize you?
No.
Outsource you? This is your baby, right? This is another thing, particularly with franchises. You can grow your business at the pace that you want to. When you start a job, can you afford to take it easy? Because you have an aging parent at home, you have a baby, etc. Once those things kind of sort themselves out, then you're gonna really put the time and energy into your job. No. You have to hit it hard all the time. You don't have that flexibility. Here's the other thing that happens. If you're 25 years old at a corporation, and you just started, and you are 55 years old at the same corporation, and you've been there 15 years, who do you think has more job security? You or the 25-year-old? Aha! So the longer you've been there, it's actually become less safer for you, isn't it?
The more you cost.
Absolutely.
So says the finance guy. Yes, you cost more. You're a liability.
Yeah.
Despite your expertise, you're a liability. So is business ownership really that risky? That's the equation, right? That's the balancing act that we have to do. So typically I go through the 3 options of starting a business. I'm not going to do that today. I'll just talk about the franchise option. I'm looking at our time here as well. As with any other option, a franchise is not the silver bullet. There are many disadvantages to a franchise, in addition to its advantages. And so you want to start to understand what it is you might be stepping into. So let's start with the pros. How many of you have heard of a franchise being referred to as a business in a box? Anyone? Yeah, a couple hands. Why is it called a business in a box? Anyone?
Because it's a proven system, a proven model. It's already been laid out, it's been proven, so you're just coming in and following that model.
Franchise holder also has a
Talking
vested
points
interest
as
in
well,
your
huh?
success.
What's that?
The franchise owner has a vested interest in your success as well.
Why is that?
Well, it's because the franchise name, the brand, all of that is important. If they succeed, the whole brand succeeds.
And when you make money, who else makes money?
They do.
They do.
Boom.
You know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what happens. Support. Support. It's all about the systems. My clients will sometimes get into, oh, Faizun, I don't know if I should get a franchise that offers a product or a service. And I say, don't worry about it. You're not there yet. Furthermore, a franchise really is not about a product or a service. It's about the systems. And what you want to find out is how robust are the systems of the franchise that you're choosing to get into. Because if those systems are not there, you'll be gone. You've lost the shirt on your back. Okay? You guys know about royalties, right? Royalty is the monthly payment you will make to your parent company, right, for the life of the agreement. Why do you pay that royalty?
For the use of the name, for the general marketing, if it's national, international, for the playbook, essentially, if there's any updates or any changes that the full brand is using.
Absolutely yes to everything this lady said. For the playbook, the one thing that you give them the royalty for is you are exchanging your money for a quicker startup. Do you guys know, for a business that started from scratch, how many years on average does it take before they reach profitability?
So two, 3 maybe.
3 years?
2 or 3.
Nope.
I'd say 5.
Nope. One more guess.
10?
10. 7. So here's my question to you. For the average person, can you afford to run your business for 7 years before you turn a penny of profit?
No.
No.
You better be married to a really rich guy or girl. This is what happens with the franchise. You get a quicker startup. I had a client. He decided he was going to buy what's called a multi-unit. He was buying 6 units of a fitness franchise. Okay? One of the most booming industries we've seen in the last 15, 20 years. He signed on with the company. In 2 weeks, he was going to go to at their headquarters. In the meantime, they've started what's called pre-opening marketing. Okay? So the franchise starts that up for you. He's sitting at training. He opens up his laptop and he logs into his new dashboard, right? Franchisee dashboard. And he looks at the number and he's puzzled and he calls someone from corporate and he says, I think there's a glitch in my dashboard. It's one too many zeros. And they started laughing at him and they said, no. So here's what happened. He signed on. In the 2 weeks leading up to training, the amount of aggressive local marketing that they had done, his particular franchise, for each location, he needed to have 750 members sign up. More than 800 people had signed up. He didn't have a location yet. He had broken even on his investment before he had even opened his doors.
Wow.
Quicker startup? Hell yeah.
That's impressive.
Right?
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things you're going to investigate to see if a franchise is really the right thing for you. Okay? I'll go to the last one. What's the FTC? Anyone know that? Federal Trade Commission. So it's odd. I now work with the FCC. In my prior life at Verizon, I still worked with the FCC. I can't seem to get away from these organizations. And now I work with the Trade Commission. Why do you care if franchising is regulated by the Trade Commission? It means you, the client, the customer, the potential franchisee, you are that much more protected. Very much like Brian's industry, franchising is a highly regulated industry. Right? Let's move over to the cons. Any questions on the pro side of the house? Comments? Jokes? All right. Cons. This lady said, she talked about the playbook. You absolutely have to follow the playbook to be successful. I've had clients in workshops like that, participants, who've said, this is all great, Faizun, fabulous about the startup and all of that stuff, but I'll be damned if I ever have to listen to anybody else tell me how to do what I need to do.
Let me ask you what
Yes,
the playbook
please.
is.
What the playbook is.
Yeah.
That is the operations manual
Okay.
that the franchisor gives to you. It is how you're supposed to run the business. It goes through every aspect of the business. How do you generate clients? How do you grow the business? How do you build clients? Right? Gives you all of the things you need to do. You're paying royalties for the playbook, and if you're unwilling to follow the playbook, don't buy a franchise.
Yeah.
There are much less expensive options for you to take, right? Again, a franchise may not be the right option for everyone. Some franchises will expect you to hit a certain annual sales goal. Again, this is part of the investigation process that you'll go through with me. If that is something that feels too onerous, or you just don't want that hanging over your head, maybe a franchise is not for you. Okay? Some people say, you know, for all the busting of my back that I will need to do, I want to keep every penny that I make. I don't want to pay any money in franchise fees and royalties. And you're absolutely right. If that's how you feel, that's what's right for you. You should not look into a franchise. Does anybody know what protected territories is? Yes.
Does it have something to do with if there's another franchisee in a certain area, you can't go beyond that area, like you have to
That's
stay in that
exactly right.
footprint that they
That's
allot you?
exactly right. Yes. Yes. So you are given what's known as a DMA, a designated marketing area, right? That's your sandbox. You market, you generate clients, you do whatever you need to do in your market. But you can't go into a market that's owned by your colleague, another franchisee. Some people say, no, that's too limiting for me. Okay. Now, all franchises don't have limited territories. Some franchises allow you to work around the country. Again, this is part of the investigation, right? Binding contract. At the end of the process, you will sign what's known as the franchise agreement. Typically, franchise agreements are about 10 years. I have seen some that are 7 years, but few and far between. So again, you want to know what it is that you're walking into. At the end of the day, it is a legal contract that you're signing. Questions?
Actually,
Yes.
all those disadvantages, honestly, I don't actually see them as disadvantages. That's my perception. Those are actually good things. Those actually are helping you to ensure that your franchise is successful because it's part of the system. They're giving you the system that has been proven to work. Right, and these are the rules that you have to follow to continue that success. So
Absolutely.
I don't see it as a disadvantage, none of them,
I don't think it's a disadvantage. I think it's a disadvantage for people who like to build ecosystems, right? So they're ecosystem builders who say, I don't want you to tell me how to run my business, right? They want that open architecture to be able to run the business the way that they want to and the creativity to grow it.
Correct.
So that's the difference of, I would say that for somebody like that, that would be a disadvantage in the sense that I'm not able to do what I want to do.
So you hit on what I typically say, if you are what I call the classic entrepreneur, if you are Mark Zuckerberg, and you've created a new company, and you've created new markets, right? If that's you, you want to be your own boss and have your final say-so, a franchise is not a good option for you. You will fight with your franchisor from day one. It is not a good relationship to be in, right? These are the kinds, by the way, yes, I have had clients who started working with me. By week 2 and 3, we part ways amicably. And I say, listen, with everything that you've showed me and shared with me and talked to me about, I really don't believe this is the option for you. Brad and I were talking about this coming in this morning. At the end of the day, he and I, we work with human beings and their life savings. This is a very serious decision, guys and girls. I take it very seriously. I expect my clients to as well, right? If it's not a good fit, let us be clear about that from the get-go. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I think in any kind of arrangement, professional relationship, personal relationship, there are advantages and disadvantages. Like in annual sales goals, I don't know how much of a role I would play in actually setting those annual sales goals. If they're given to me from above, is it really realistic? Do I have the expertise to really turn things around and hit those sales targets on year one immediately? What happens if I don't? Let's say if I 2 or 3 years and I don't hit my sales goals. Do I lose everything? I mean, that's where we have to talk to a consultant and know all the aspects of it. But it's built into any arrangement. It's not only, I don't think it's realistic to find like some kind of business arrangement where it's all beneficial to me. There's risk, and they spread the risk. And they have more insight into this than I do. They do want me to succeed, because if I succeed, they succeed, but they might be more aggressive for my market. That might not be really realistic. I don't know.
Absolutely.
So there always are disadvantages and advantages.
And ultimately what I think it boils down to is you almost have to have that burning vision and desire for yourself to say, you know what, this is the path for me, and I'm going to make it happen no matter what. I know that's what I did. I had no idea what the hell I was going to do. Really, no idea at all, right? But with a franchise, you do have an idea. There's a particular franchise I work with. They provide window treatments to residential and commercial clients. They're almost fully sold out across the United States. At this point, they have about 1,300 franchisees. It's a 30-year-old brand. Okay. One of the very last territories, which was the waterfront in DC, my client just snapped up in September. So he owns all of that now, right? One of the things you're going to do when you get into this process is what's called validation. Validation is when you're going to get on the phone, or if the franchisee is local, you're going to go visit them. You are going to be speaking with franchisees of the brands that I have given you. Why? To ask exactly those kinds of questions. Because as your franchise coach, I know a little bit about a lot of different businesses. Brand's going to help you on the funding side of the house. The corporate headquarters people that you're going to talk to, yeah, they know more about the business than I do. But who really knows the business? The franchisees, right? When my client went through validation, he came back to me at the end of validation and I said, so, Anton, tell me. I don't think you've met Anton. I said, so tell me, how was validation? Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. He was quiet and he said, Faizun, there's no ugly. Every single franchisee in their system is profitable. They have never seen one litigation against them. They have well over 1,300 franchisees. Who are you getting into partnership with? It's very important, right? You have to understand that. I think, Greg, I think I'm doing horribly for time, am I not? Yeah.
You got 31 minutes?
All right, no, Brian needs time. All right, so these are direct quotes from clients of mine. I'm not going to go through them, right? Pretty self-explanatory, but here's the key thing. This is true, or many of these are true, for almost every one of us. Because at the end of the day, human desires, human goals, human needs, they're kind of universal. I want to be able to control my destiny. I want to be financially self-sufficient, right? It's the very basic goals that we all have. I mentioned this earlier. A franchise is all about a system. How easy or hard is it to start a business? I went to Virginia State Corporation Commission. I incorporated my business, boom, bam, boom, $125, and 20 minutes later I was a business. Not super difficult. The rub, how long have you stayed in business? Successfully, making a profit. How long have you done that? That is what franchising should be able to give to you. Here are just some of the main categories of items that you are going to go through when you begin working with me. How experienced is the parent company? Do they know what they're talking about? How simple is the business model? It shouldn't be overly complicated. It should be simple. Support. What kind of training do you get initially before you even open your doors? And then for the life of your contract with them, at a minimum 10 years, what kind of ongoing support do they give you? Name recognition. So this is a funny one. I didn't know whether to put that one on. That's a double-edged sword. Do you guys remember a couple summers ago? It was all over the papers that the Subway footlong sandwich, oh my God, was actually not a foot long. Do you remember that? I do. It was a big to-do. Oh my God, it's not a foot long. What have I been buying all this time? It was a pure nightmare for the company. Right? Their prices plummeted. It's a double-edged sword. Right? What happens at the parent company can come back to bite you. The flip side, what's the one name that comes to mind when you think of a franchise? Everyone.
Yeah.
See that? Name recognition. It goes both ways. Right? Systems, sales, marketing, operations, customer support, systems. What systems does the franchise give to you? That is what you're paying for. This is what you want to know. If I took every other bullet out, this is what I would focus on.
Yeah.
Okay? This becomes very important. For those of you who have ever owned a business, entrepreneurship can be a very lonely journey. Nobody really knows what you're feeling, what you're dealing with. Yeah, you can talk to your spouse, but you're married to them. With a franchise, you should have a system of franchisees who support you, who prop you up, who help you when you're getting stuck, when you're running up against a difficulty, in addition to the parent company. Your system of franchisees.
Could that not perhaps, lead to competition? That you
No.
have other franchisees who are,
Because you have protected territories.
because of it, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I call you up and I say, hey, so look, I'm really trying to get in with this organization called 40 Plus.
Mhm.
They're all over the country. Man, I've tried calling a couple of times, but this guy who works there, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I just really can't get past him.
Yeah.
I know you work with 40 Plus. I'm making this up, Tony. You're a sweetheart to work with. So I know you work with 40 Plus
Yeah, yeah.
in Michigan.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about how you approach the relationship?
Yeah.
He's not stepping into my sandbox. I'm
Yeah.
not stepping into his.
Sure.
So the culture of teamwork becomes that much stronger because there is not that inherent competition. If I tell her she's going to make more money or there's not that. Yes?
You may be getting to this, so I don't know if I'm stepping ahead, but the matchmaking part of it, like
Yes.
how do you get to, these are the 100+ franchises that are out there, here's where your interest is, and like walking through these 5 or something you should really do the deeper
We are
dive
getting
into.
to it.
Yeah.
We are getting to it. So the 100 plus, several hundred categories. So first of all, currently in the United States, we have about 3,300 different franchises. So if you were going to look at the franchise, where in the hell do you even begin, right? Now, these are the 5 major categories of franchises that there are. There are subcategories, but these are the major ones. The first 2 are pretty self-explanatory. So retail, these are concepts that you would site or locate in a retail location, in a mall,
Yeah.
in other kind of shopping centers, etc. Can anybody give me an example of a business services franchise? What do you think that is?
Financial consulting.
Yep.
Or,
Right? You are a franchise that provides IT services to other businesses, provides marketing services, business services. What's home personal services?
window treatments.
Boom.
Yeah.
House cleaning. House cleaning.
Yeah.
Cutting your hair. Doing your nails. Right? There's water coming down your roof. Who do you call? In most cases, it's probably a franchise and you didn't even realize that. Right? So that number needs to be updated. It's closer to 3,300 now. So here's why. Here is why you want to work with somebody who knows the industry. There are many franchises I don't even mention or show my clients. They're fully sold out in the DMV. There's nothing available because they've been so successful. There are businesses that require you to have particular licenses in order to be able to operate. Every state has a quota for licenses. Once the quota is met, you're SOL, baby. There's nothing I can do. So I will show you.
Is that annual or is that one time only? That
So-
that limitation?
That limitation, typically once the quota is met,
Yeah.
it's several years before they open it up again.
Got it. Got it.
Right? So if you're looking at that right now,
Mm.
there's really no way for me to tell you how long to wait.
To wait, yeah.
Right? So these are, do people know, what are some examples of franchises that require licenses?
Hair.
What's that?
Hair.
Hair.
Have to have a license.
Hair, even though it falls on the sort of the low end of the spectrum.
Real estate.
Real estate.
one.
Typically, these are what we call non-medical, in-home senior care. You're dealing with a human being, right? Yes, it's non-medical, but it's still care, right? So there are certain categories where these become even more important, right? Not all have a good track record. How do you know? If you go to a company, any company's website, what are you looking at? Marketing. That's not real information. That's meant to wow and dazzle you. But do you really know how good they are? Right? Something you need to figure out. And then ultimately, it goes into what you are just asking, right? Will this particular franchise allow you to reach your goals? Every single person sitting in this room has a very different set of goals. What are yours? And will the business you're looking at be able to get you there? So interestingly, now you asked me this question. A big misconception I get from clients is, you know, this all sounds wonderful, but I don't have $1 million. Now the good news here is that it does not cost you $1 million. Yes, there are some that will, absolutely, but the majority don't. What do you think this category is, the most expensive one?
McDonald's.
What is McDonald's?
I'm sorry?
What is McDonald's? What
It's
category
food.
would that be?
Food.
Food. Food retail. Anytime you're starting to get into these categories, your numbers go up. Why? Because you need physical space, right?
Yeah.
What is that first category, under 50,000?
Services.
Virtual?
What's that?
Virtual? Virtual?
These are what we call side businesses. So before you all get super excited, these are not businesses that will allow you to recreate a six-figure income. So a side business would be, you have some money set aside at the bank, and you're like, you know what, it's collecting dust. Of course, this is when you're not banking at City National, in which case it would be different.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug, baby, right? But these would be, you decide you're going to buy a couple of vending machines. Side businesses, right? This, 100 to 250, is what we call the sweet spot of franchising. Why is it called the sweet spot? It is that range that is still very affordable to the most number of people, that allows me to show you the most diverse set of businesses across categories. And they span all of these. Most of these. I shouldn't say all, most of these, right? Any questions on this slide?
So the percentages are the percentages that most people
Yes.
utilize?
Yes. Exactly. So if there were 100 clients, so this is actually 2010 data, of the franchises people had bought, 13% did these, 18% went with businesses that cost over $500,000, and the largest number, almost 30%, bought businesses in this category. Sweet spot. How many of you have heard of the word recession resistant? Yeah? Whether the economy is going up or it's going down, you and your business are thriving and making money. Who doesn't want a business like that? Show me your hands. Who does not? That was a trick question. All right. All of these different categories, these are examples of businesses here in the DMV that are recession resistant, many of which I have put my clients into. Here's one of my favorite examples. Hair care. Whether the economy is going up or it's going down, what grows? Unless you're my husband who's bald, in which case it does not matter, right? Again, think of the average ticket price. 20, 30, right? To go get a haircut. Whether you're a professional, whether you stay at home, whether you're a child, you need to get your hair cut. If you have a job, you need to look professional. That is a category that we have seen unbelievable growth in. Okay? Building essentials, one of my other favorites. Think of this, the space that 40 Plus is in. It's a series of offices. Who comes in and replaces the light bulbs?
Contractor.
What we don't know is in most cases, they're actually a franchisee.
Franchise, yeah.
Right? Building essentials, light bulbs, flooring, window coverings, curtains, blinds, furniture. Who provides these, right? As you start to think about franchises, think of the demographics it serves, think of the products and services that it brings. Who's heard of semi-absentee? Semi-absentee businesses are those businesses where you can hire a manager who's going to run the business day to day, which frees up your time to do whatever else it is that you want to do. There are many clients I have who say, you know, have a good job, I'm making good money, I get great benefits. I don't want to leave my job, but I do want to be able to start that retirement plan early. Can I buy a business that allows me to continue in my job, but still run a business and make money? And the answer is yes. And these are all examples, categories that you can leave that in.
And I'm sure there are many more than those.
There are.
No.
I was running out of space.
Okay.
I didn't want to make it too hard for Greg here to read my bullet points. All right. So this lady here asked the question, how do we know? Out of all of the thousands that there are out there, how do we know if a franchise is the right one for us? So this is where we begin. You must ask yourself, a franchise that is your perfect fit franchise gives you three things. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you ping me, I will give you my cards today. I see a lot of you taking copious notes. I will send you my deck. You can have all of this information. Right? No need to take mad notes. I always used to take those when I was sitting in the audience. Your destination. Your destination is going to be super different from his, which is going to be very different from mine. Where do you want your business to take you? You might say, I want this business in the next 5 years, I want to be able to retire. It gives me this much money every single year, which frees up my time to travel the world with my spouse, to spend more time with my kids. And it's your destination. This is part of what you and I will figure out. Where do you want to go? Why? Meeting your lifestyle and financial goals. I have clients who say, Faizun, I have been a government contractor for 27 years. I am done.
Yeah.
My wife hates me. I didn't see my children grow up. I'm done. But I'm not ready to retire. That's a lifestyle goal. I want to be able to make money, but I don't want to be in it 24/7. Okay, maybe a semi-absentee business is the one for you, right? Your destination. Let's figure that out. Most importantly, who wants to lose the shirt off their backs? Right. Let's make sure that it reduces your risk. And everybody's perception of risk, level of risk is very different. This guy here knows that better than I do, right? Let's figure that risk out. This in a nutshell is our 4-step process of how we find your perfect fit franchise. The first step begins with you and I jumping on a call. You may not want to share your deepest, darkest secrets with everybody else in this room, but I would ask that you share it with me. Because, and I say this a little facetiously, but the more that you, my client, talk to me about the things that are most important to you, the better equipped you make me. Because right now, we are virtually strangers. Right? What is important to you? Let's figure that out first so we can get you there. Right? The first is the consult. The second part is probably one of the most important parts of the process. This is where you and I will sit together, either in person or over a phone. We will spend about an hour, hour and a half together, and I will build out your personalized business model. What is that? Think of this as we walk into the meeting, I have a blank sheet of paper, and together, you and I, you're going to help me paint a picture of what your perfect franchise looks like. Granular details. Faizun, I don't want my business to be open 24/7. I want banker's hours. That's going to be one of the details that goes into it. That becomes part of your business model. Once I have that, I then go into my inventory of the several hundred I work with, and I will pick out a handful of businesses whose business models most closely approximate whose? Yours. Right? There's a method behind the madness. Once I have introduced you to those businesses, the management team of that franchise is going to start to reach out to you. Hi, Greg. Your coach Faizun Kamal gave us your information, and he felt that you would potentially be a good fit with who we are and what we do. We'd love to set up a time to chat. That kicks off the process. As you go through, you're going to be talking to senior management. They're going to walk you through a variety of information. webinars, videos, marketing materials, brochures. You will get to a point where you're going to review what's known as the FDD. Does anybody know what that is?
No.
It's a franchise disclosure document. Remember, we are regulated by who? The FTC. Every franchise, in order for them to legally sell franchises in the United States, they have to be able to have an up-to-date FDD that's been approved by the Trade Commission. Not once when they begin, not once every 10 years, once every 12 months, regardless of any material changes. That's very important for you. It's a several hundred-page document typically. If you're having trouble falling asleep, I tell my clients, cuddle up to it. You'll fall asleep real fast. But jokes aside, it is a very important document for you to be able to go through and understand, right? Every week, while all of this is happening, you and I are on the phone. We have a weekly call. Because remember, yes, we did your business model, but do I really know everything that I need to know about you? So we're going to tweak along the way. One week you might tell me, Faizun, oh my God, this particular business, I think this is the one for me. Okay, well, let's keep continuing to investigate. 2 weeks down the road, you say to me, you know that business that I told you that I thought was the right one for me? Based on these things that I just discovered, I don't think that's the right one for me. You see? As you go through every week, that is going to change, and that is the whole point of the process. You get to the end of the road, typically 45 to 60 days after we begin. You will then be invited to the corporate headquarters by the franchise. It's known as the Discovery Day. This is an opportunity for each of you to meet each other in person. This is the last stage of the interview. Remember, all of this stuff that you're doing, you best believe you're being interviewed. Right? Put your best foot forward. I have had clients who have come back from Discovery Day, and the franchise called me to say, hey, Faizun. I said, oh no, I can hear it in your voice. Yeah, we don't think Greg is going to be a good fit for us. By no means should you think, I'm giving you money, therefore you should give me a franchise. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So we go through the entire journey, side by side. But let's say you're not Greg. I just have to figure it out. You're not Greg, you come back and the franchise says, we love her, we love him. We're going to send them a franchise agreement. At that point, I will say, time out. You're not signing anything yet. I'm going to introduce you to franchise attorneys. I'm not one. I work with some of the best in the country. It is your discretion if you want to get interviewed or not. I always suggest for a minimum $200,000, $250,000 investment, or even a scrimp on $3,000. Come on now, right? Yeah. You want to know what it is you're walking into, right? You do that. You get the review done. You like what you see. You sign. Shake hands. You are officially a franchisee. Yeah. And by the way, at some point in the process, we may find out that it is not a good fit for you, and that's okay.
But what then at that point? Sorry, if you find out, well, you've signed all the paperwork. You signed up your.
You are not signing anything.
Okay.
We figured this out before you sign anything, before any money has exchanged hands.
Okay.
I do not want you showing up on my doorstep 6 months down the road ready to kick my ass. No. In all seriousness, it's a large life-changing decision.
Exactly.
It's a large amount of money. We want to make sure all of your doubts have been laid to rest.
Yeah.
You really want to feel this is the one.
This is it. Yeah.
For the next 10 years, I'm going to jump out of bed every morning because this is what I want to do every day.
Yeah.
You should feel that way, right? You should feel that way. You guys are lucky. Do you know how many people there are out there? They hate their jobs. They're living lives of quiet desperation, but they don't have the means to do anything about it, to change it.
Yeah.
This is a huge opportunity. All right.
At what point in that process would the financing piece come in terms of parallel? Is it kind of like buying a home? You are pre-qualified
Yes.
for? Okay.
Brad is going to pre-qualify you so that we know what amount of funding you will potentially get, because then that directly informs me the kinds and the ranges of franchising I can actually show you. Because every franchise, guys, by the way, they have a very specific investment level. And it's all over the place depending on what business it is. So once he says to me, boom, this is the number, then I look into my inventory and I pick out businesses accordingly. Brad, take it away.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and it's certainly, to your question, Karen, it's very much a fluid discussion that is totally different for you than every other person, because where you have sources of capital, as they would say in these meetings, where you have, depending on how much cash you have in your bank account, how many dollars you have saved up in various retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, or 403bs from previous jobs or current jobs, how much equity you have in your home. If you own a home, we'll get into different avenues that finance that may be available, but that totally changes and affects what Faizun can help you look at, what is attainable financially, and then also will help you and me discuss and kind of whittle down the options of the best way to go about trying to finance it. Because again, it's different, much different for somebody who's cash rich and rents their home and all that they own is in this one bank account. That isn't good or bad, it just helps us narrow our focus. And we know it makes it much easier for me to provide reasonable and useful advice, whereas if somebody has invested in real estate over the years and that's where most of their net worth is tied up in, again, not good or bad or better or worse, but that quickly and materially changes how this discussion will go from the get-go. Because you might, if you need X number of dollars in cash in order to qualify, in order to get in the door with the franchise you think might be best, then that's a conversation to have up front. So I think that's where I come in, is based on my experience with the bank and working with different entrepreneurs, we can identify pretty quickly what your kind of strengths and weaknesses are on your personal balance sheet, and that'll help navigate us to the best way to go about it and see what's feasible. Because it's not worth anybody's time to spin our wheels and narrow down to your best fit franchise if you don't have ultimately the means to pay for it. Because as Faizun said, they're reasonably priced, it's reasonably priced, and there's some that may be affordable for most people, but it just matters what's affordable for you to make it work. So I'll review real quick just some, this very high level, and again, it's very personalized, and I have business cards that I'll be willing to share as well. The cell phone list down there is my personal cell phone, so I can't hide from you. And my office a couple blocks down the street, and another plug for State National. What's made the company different in my eyes is, in order to apply for a personal credit card, you have to come to the bank in person, or we meet at a neutral location. There's no online self-driven applications, so my shop and my team here is very much still the old-fashioned handshake, coffee swigging way of doing business. So that's what you'd be getting into if you want to talk to me about franchise investing or anything else. So we'll go into a bit more detail, but these listed out here, this is just a short list of some of the most common ways that people will kind of take the savings or the equity or net worth that they've built up over a career doing whatever it is that folks have done over the years, and then figuring out the best way to leverage what you've saved, what you've effectively saved up, and what you've built up in your kind of personal war chest of either money or equity or property or whatever, and then turning that into a means into starting a business, if that is ultimately what you want to do.
Question, so I just want to make sure, when you say sources of capital here, you're referring to that as being the sources that you and I will be talking about to give me funding for the business, or is this actually the source of the funding for the business that you're referring to here?
More the former. It's that these are different avenues we can look at in order that you may be able to pull money that you, the potential franchise owner, the potential entrepreneur, would have to bring to the table. Okay. But it ultimately, it may be money from the bank, but then we can get into how you can qualify, because that's a big mystery to folks. So we'll talk about different ways that a potential entrepreneur can bring the money to the table that the franchise might need.
But again, to clarify, that means that's not necessarily what you're going to be using to purchase the franchise. This is sort of like collateral or something to say, if I want to get a loan from you to actually purchase it, this is what I would put forward as my guarantee to qualify for a loan.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more. Yeah, okay. Like whether you'll need, whether there'll be tangible collateral that will be needed with certain bullets here, like an SBA loan, a home equity line of credit. There can be tangible physical collateral. Again, I'll provide a bit more color to both of those. And then there are other sources like a personal line of credit, which I'll speak to as well, where there may not necessarily be say your home, if you own a home, involved in the deal. So totally different just depending on the situation in your specific situation. So I'll start with the simplest, but also at times the hardest to get, and then we'll whittle it down to more specific options. So personal line of credit or a personal loan. Everybody knows conceptually what that would mean, but just to give you a very brief snapshot of what it looks like to apply for this and to see if it's something that could move the needle for your franchise opportunity. An example, a personal line of credit that also known as an unsecured line of credit that I worked on with a new client. He's a financial advisor. He works with an independent financial advising firm in Montgomery County. He had the opportunity to buy shares, basically buy a small ownership position in his firm from the boss who started it, who's easing out towards retirement. We set up a personal line of credit because while he does own his home, he doesn't have a lot of equity in it. His mortgage is close to the value of the whole home, so there isn't additional equity that he could borrow off of. I'll speak to more detail to that. So that wasn't an option. He had some money in the bank, but not enough to write his boss the check that they'd agreed upon to buy that ownership in the firm, but he really wanted to do it. So we used the magic formula we had at the bank. I went through his personal household kind of financial info. He had some cash in the bank because a good financial advisor. He had some personal investments, stocks, funds, mutual funds under his name as well. And then he had moderate, manageable personal debt. So his personal income was much higher than his personal debt for his mortgage, his insurance, and all that. And then he had enough cash in the bank that when we put in our formula, any bank would look at similarly. We said there's enough cash that he can cover, a portion of this loan we're offering him if he was unable to work and wasn't earning income right away. So that's the second way that the bank would look to recoup its money. We look to see that our borrower does have some cash in the bank. So that wouldn't be a good option if, again, most of your net worth is in real estate. If that were the case, it wouldn't have been a good bet. And then he had strong enough income from his day job that the personal loan, he got a loan for $25,000, and that helped, plus some of the cash he had got him to where he's going. For a larger, if you're looking to buy a restaurant where the investment were $500,000, if you and Faizun established that, then a personal loan with no collateral, it's just a handshake and a promise to repay, that's probably a loftier goal and hard to get to. But for a smaller, maybe the side hustler, the semi-absentee way, for somebody who's earning an income from their 9-to-5 career, that's the way that we talk about sometimes. Getting to larger numbers. And this is simply for homeowners. If you're not a homeowner, then you can take a nap for the next 30 seconds. So specific to folks who own the home that they live in, call it their owner-occupied property. If you have lendable equity, which is the bank speak for saying that, say your home, you're fortunate enough to live off of M Street in Georgetown, your home was worth $100,000 when you bought it 20 years ago, now it's worth $1.5 million, and you've refinanced a couple times when the market dictated that you do that, so you still have a mortgage even though you've lived there 20 years, and your mortgage balance is $500,000. So you owe $500,000 to the bank, you make monthly payments each month, but your home is worth $1.5 million. The bank speak would say you have $1 million of lendable equity in your home that you could leverage, another irritating bank word, that you could leverage the equity you have in your home to borrow money from the bank at a less expensive rate than when it's not secured by anything. Because just like your primary mortgage that you have in place, you agree to make your home, you put that up as collateral. The bank would take, not an ownership interest, but they would take a security lien, we call it, that basically that would be the collateral ensuring, giving us confidence. We're mitigating the risk of lending money to somebody by saying you will repay based on your current income at your 9-to-5 job, and based on you have some cash, you have equity in this home. We're all swimming in the same direction and interested in you not defaulting on this loan. That's a way where usually the number is up to 80% of the value of your home is what a bank, say National's right there as well, 80% of the value of your home, the bank will consider lending you. So when you take the mortgage balance that you had in that example, $500,000, if then you want to borrow $250,000 because that's the cost of this new franchise opportunity, the $500,000 of your current mortgage plus $250,000 home equity line of credit that we're talking about adds up to $750,000. Your home is worth $1.5 million. That's a 50% loan to value of your home when you combine the mortgage and the HELOC, the home equity line of credit. That is a very attractive deal to the bank and very possible if you have solid personal credit history and your banking income and all the other couple of factors that play in, because the value of your home is a very valuable asset and the bank is going to be comfortable, all things equal, lending to you this money that you need for this opportunity. You might not have that $250,000 sitting in your bank account, but because your home has gone up in value so much, that could be a resource that you use in order to get where you and Faizun want to go. Of course, this is just high-level stuff, and there are multiple conversations we need to have about, are you comfortable putting a second mortgage on your home for this opportunity when there's all kinds of uncertainty as to exactly how the experience will go. So just like Faizun was saying, there are pros and cons to everything, certainly on the banking side as well, and that's where the conversations are valuable. Yes, ma'am?
So at high level, what if it's not owner-occupied?
If it's not owner-occupied, different banks have different rules. Currently, my bank, City National Bank, generally is not as enthusiastic about renting, offering home equity loans or lines of credit when you have an investment property. Because if you have tenants, it just adds some level of complexity of banks have to think about the worst case scenario when they're reviewing the risk of a deal. If there were an issue of, well, the borrower, our client is defaulting on the loan, we need to take possession of the home and try to sell it to get our money back, because that's the agreement, just like when you get a mortgage. If there are tenants, if our client doesn't actually live in the house or maybe doesn't even live near the house, it just adds levels of complexity legally and just logistically. So it doesn't mean it can't be done, but I would say generally the bank will lend less money and might put a bit of a premium on the interest rate and charge a bit more to account for, I guess, the additional complexity that goes into it. So it's not that it can't be done, but it's definitely, you get more bang for your buck if it's the home that you live in. Because any bank's going to look and say, well, Tara lives there, she's there every day, she has a vested interest in her day-to-day lifestyle of having this home kept well and the roof is well maintained and all that. So that's kind of the spirit of how the bank comes up with these
Can I
policies.
just jump in with one thing?
Yeah.
I would say, don't let the financing piece scare you off until you've spoken to one of us, right? He went through two things. There are multiple ways to do this. I should add, multiple legal ways.
Absolutely.
And we've done this. Do you think every client that comes to me has a pristine financial record, who's a homeowner, has been a homeowner for 10 years? Absolutely not. But they still are able to get the funding they need to start the business. So don't let that turn you off or scare you off.
Yeah, I certainly don't mean to get too granular. I just want to introduce the idea of some of the most popular and most common ways to go about it. One that I can speak to, I know Faizun's clients have gone this route before. Some clients that I have done the same thing, where if you like a lot of people in this room, if you've worked for the federal government or with a large corporation where they had a 401k, 403b account that you've built up over time, you have a vested interest in that money. It's legally yours. You just don't want to, the plan is not to take out from a retirement until you're at least 59 and a half years old. But for the right opportunity in the right situation, with the right advice from a financial advisor and an accountant, of which we have many good resources and people we trust that can give more detailed advice than I am qualified to give, a 401k, many 401k programs offer the option to basically take a loan off of your own account, usually at a pretty reasonable interest rate, because again, it's your money. No bank is out the money. No bank is sweating whether they'll get repaid. So that's something that, if that is something where you look at your personal balance sheet and you say, my biggest asset is, I've built up $500,000 in my 401k. I'm only 45 years old, so that didn't strike me as something I wanted to touch now. Again, there are pros and cons to doing that, but in many 401k programs, you have the option to do that, and that has no income verification. No bank is shaking you down for your tax returns to see how much money you've been making recently. The equation's much simpler. It's driven by you. It's just a matter of, does that make sense in your personal situation? So we've seen people do it, not right for everybody. And if you have an IRA, an individual retirement account, those often are much more restrictive. Borrowing off of an IRA, not usually an option like it is for a 401k account. But again, we have financial advisors that are very well spoken in how you can navigate those accounts and those opportunities to make them work for you. Ask us for an introduction.
So interestingly enough, the only instance in which you can take money out of your retirement account without paying an arm and a leg is when you are using your money to start your own business.
Exactly.
Most people don't know this.
Yeah.
It's the only instance, right? So if you have it and you don't own a home, you might still be able to, like I said, there are different ways that you can do it, but every person's financial situation is so different that it really does require a close look.
Yeah,
and that's what question I wanted to ask you folks is you're familiar with that avenue.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what I want to know.
Absolutely.
all we can
Yeah.
say is it is a thing and people do it.
It is a
and-
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Retirement isn't the only way, and most people don't notice. If you have a whole life insurance policy and you have cash value that's in excess of that, you can borrow off your cash value of your life insurance policy. So retirement isn't always the way that you have to go.
Sure.
And then you can pay that back at an interest. So that's another option as well. So don't always think you have to dig into your retirement account.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so there are various assets that you and your family might own, and you might not be in the habit of drawing money from them. Like if you've just been paying into a life insurance family to look out for your family for decades, it may be worth a lot more than you realize because it's never come up before, but in the right scenario, it might be something you can leverage in order to get you to where you want to go here.
And the
Absolutely.
interest rates are competitive.
Yeah, it can often be cheaper than borrowing from a bank. Just depends what you have on, just depends what you own. And then the meat of it, this is much more complex than we have time to talk about now, but just be aware that there is a market for entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs. Even if you have no business experience, there are government programs, the Small Business Administration, that they don't offer the loan. You probably hear a lot about SBA loans and that they exist and they're out there. And you probably wondered who qualifies for them, how do you get them, and who actually provides the money. It always does come from the bank. Like the SBA Express loan program, generally for loans in the loans in the $100,000 to $250,000 space that is provided by the bank. There's essentially an insurance policy from the SBA that will help make the bank whole if the borrower ends up defaulting or if their business doesn't go well and they can't repay the loan in full. So SBA loan programs, we can talk much more in a one-off conversation, but just know that is an avenue where banks are basically, the SBA will incentivize banks and make them more willing to come to the table to look at somebody's business plan, look at what they project and franchise because of the FTD document and all the information that's publicly available about franchises. Franchises have a head start versus a true startup business for their franchisees to potentially qualify for an SBA loan because there's all this data out there about reasonable income and reasonable revenue targets that you might get. So just know that's something that the bank provides that may be an option even if you don't have a lot of equity in your home, even if you don't have a ton of money in your 401k. It just depends how much you're looking to borrow, what your personal story is. So that's something that I work with clients with sometimes as well, just depending on how much they need to borrow, what their story is, what their experience is, but that's an option that folks talk about as well. And then mentioned already before, but a big part of my role as a banker, because you probably, I don't know, if any of you have actually been to the bank lately, chances are you have a checking account, a savings account, maybe a mortgage. You don't really have to do much with those things besides pay your bills and check your balances, make sure you have as much money as you thought you did. When
And pay the bank fees.
And
pay the bank fees.
And that. If that's a pain point, then we should talk just because there's a lot of competition out there and you shouldn't feel like you're being nickel and dimed.
Boom, that was good.
But what I'm doing the 90% of my time, day in and day out, when I'm not physically opening a bank account or processing a loan application, is I'm having conversations both with clients and prospective clients about what their hopes and dreams are, but then, and Faizun similar, we work with strategic partners, no formal affiliation, just like our two brands don't, but I work with a number of small business accountants, I work with a lot of small business attorneys, a lot of financial advisors, folks that have an area of expertise that is beyond my level of certification, and vice versa. They rely on me when their clients are having similar conversations and they want to figure out how to best pay for it. Use us. I would say hopefully one of the benefits of you guys showing up today is you now can have, as long as you choose to ask for it, you have access to my network of local folks who are very good at their narrow lane that could help you pull this off. Because it certainly takes more than just Faizun. She referenced before, it takes a good accountant who can help you make sense of all the numbers you're trying to put together, and it just takes a personable and experienced lawyer who can help you set everything up legally, just like it takes a banker to help you figure out how to pay for it. So a good business owner, the most effective business owner, will admit from the beginning that they don't have all the answers and they can't build it all themselves. And we are the strategic partners that can help you get to where you want to go. I believe this is your cue.
So, who has an evaluation form in front of them? I think I gave everyone one except you, sir, and Rob, and you, and you. I had a client who closed on this franchise in November. Since November, I have introduced him to a banker, personal insurance agent, business insurance agent, real estate agent. I'm forgetting one more, 5 people. So the point is, the moment you sign your franchise, you and I are not done. And I take pride in staying in touch with every client I've ever placed in the business, because that's just the beginning of that adventure. So, and this is our contact information. Please connect. Please connect, and I have business cards if anybody needs additional information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.